Hello, my name is Diego Vargas Vizcaya, and today I will dissect a fetal pig. Before we can begin the dissection, however, we need to go over a few basics first. For example, my table has been covered with absorbent pads that will protect it from any contaminants and from any gross materials. In the middle of the table, there's a tray. This tray has been covered with the same type of absorbent pads, and that's where I'll be putting the specimen later. I will be wearing a lab coat, goggles, latex gloves, and an apron as part of my personal protective equipment, PPE for short. Now tools. We'll need cutting tools that are sharp and dangerous, but also precise. My tools are a pair of operating scissors, a pair of iris scissors, tweezers, a mole probe, and a good old scalpel. My specimen is a fetal pig sold by Carolina Biological, link in the description, which has been pre-prepared for educational purposes such as this one. Its preservatives help prevent mold and bacteria from growing on the specimen, and they maintain the tissue consistency close to that of the living organism. They've been rinsed and packaged in non-toxic solutions prepared with 2% propylene glycol, 98% water solution, and less than 0.6% formalin. Now that that's out of the way, on to the dissection. Wait. Once I've gotten a hold of our little pig, I took him out of the plastic prison he was packaged in and made sure to dry him so that his fluids wouldn't become a problem. Now, to examine him, starting at the pig's anterior region, we can find his head, his ears, his snout with nostrils on the end, eyelids on the side of his head with eyeballs behind them, his mouth with a tongue inside, the sensory papillae on his tongue which help him detect chemicals he knows as taste, and, if we look even closer, the hard palate at the top of his mouth. Now I drop him onto the tray and get to work strapping down our little specimen with these rubber bands. The pig's now on its dorsal. While our pig is ventral side up, we can see his posterior clearly. You can see his tail, and if it wouldn't get the video taken down, you'd be able to see his anus. On his belly, you can get to see 2 rows of nipples around their umbilical cord, which used to be attached to the placenta of him and his mother. And here you can see whether your pig has a bulge or an extra opening, which will determine whether you have a female pig or a male pig. Now, let's cut open our little piggy. I began with the scalpel, making a 5 centimeter or so incision above the umbilical cord that comes down and around on both sides, making a sort of hexagon shape. Then the cuts will intersect again below. With scissors, you can fully separate the umbilical cord. Now, we need to make some lateral cuts near the ribs and sternum. They're made of cartilage, so put more force into these cuts. And some more down here. After that, we free the diaphragm, the thoracic cavity, and the abdominal cavity. Make sure you cut neatly around the wall of the body. Don't hurt any organs. If you don't use too much pressure, you can get a good look at some internal organs. And with that, the chest cavity is open. Next, cut out all the organs by cutting the membranes that connect it to the walls and cutting the bones that connect the others. Make sure to cut these thin membranes and not any part of an organ. Now, just like they were inside, you need to rearrange the organs outside of our fetal friend. Now that everything's in place, we can inspect.
Groovy.
Now, from top to bottom, these are the organs and their systems. The respiratory system gives our body oxygen, and it all starts with this. The trachea is a tube that connects with the lungs here. The ring cartilage prevents it from collapsing, and the larynx, the hardest and chunkiest region of the trachea, has fibrous cords inside that produce sound by vibrating when air passes through. A second tube near the trachea is the esophagus. That's part of the digestive system, which we'll get to later. Around here is the diaphragm, a bell-shaped muscle that separates the abdominal cavity from the thoracic cavity. The diaphragm's responsible for the physical movements we call breathing. When it contracts, it moves downward and the thoracic cavity increases. When it relaxes, it goes back to the original position and the thoracic cavity decreases in size. Those movements, of course, respond to breathing air in and breathing air out, respectively. If we follow the trachea, we'll find the lungs. Pair of highly vascularized organs with two bronchial tubes inside. The sections of the lungs are called lobes. There's 3 on the left and 4 on the right. They're responsible for supplying oxygen to the capillaries and exhaling carbon dioxide. They're also placed surrounding the heart, which is part of the circulatory system. Pumps blood through the body, starting at this pig's 4-chambered heart. The opaque membrane that surrounds the heart is the pericardium, and it also contains a fluid that lubricates and protects the heart. The heart itself is 2 separate pumps joined together and composed of cardiac muscle. The pump on the left side pumps the blood throughout the systemic circulation, and the one on the right pumps blood throughout the pulmonary circulation. Moving into the pig's bowels, the digestive system processes food into power for our body. Proteins, starches, and fats are broken down by the digestive juices of the liver, pancreas, and the small intestine. The largest organ in this whole animal is the liver. The liver is a highly vascular structure, and besides helping digestive functions, it filters and breaks down toxins ingested or produced during protein metabolism and turns glucose into glycogen, a source of energy for the body. In order to make storage easier, the liver is also a major storage site for nutrients. The gallbladder, this small sac-like structure, is the storage organ for bile, the digestive juice produced by the liver. The stomach, found under the liver, is a large bean or sac-looking organ that digests food with its digestive juices, the recipe for which is a mixture of gastric juices with the salivary juices and food. At its lower end, or ploric end, there is a sphincter that serves as the junction where food can pass from the stomach into the small intestine, a slender tube where most of digestion occurs. The portion of the small intestine that's next to the stomach is called the duodenum. If you lift the small intestine and pancreas as a unit from the abdomen, the large intestine is visible. It can be separated into several areas: the spiral colon, the ascending colon, the descending colon, and the anus. The large intestine's main function is to consolidate waste material, removing most of the remaining water. Multiple bacteria are found in the large intestine that ferment any remaining carbohydrates and produce vitamin K, which is absorbed. The compacted waste leaves the body through the anus. Inside the stomach, you can see the pancreas and the spleen. The pancreas looks like a C-shaped curve of the small intestine where it joins the stomach. It has a granular structure, and it's a dual function organ since it's both an exocrine organ and an endocrine organ. As an exocrine organ, it's responsible for the secretion of the pancreatic juices that contain enzymes essential for the digestion of food. And as an endocrine organ, the pancreas produces 3 hormones: insulin, glucagon, and somatostatin, that regulate blood sugar levels. The spleen here is a brown oblong thing, but it's not part of the digestive system. It's part of The spleen's function is to filter blood. After birth, it functions in the reproduction of white blood cells, removing old red blood cells and producing antibodies. Once nutrients have been extracted from food, waste materials are rejected with the urinary system. The bean-shaped structures of the excretory system are the kidneys. They lie on the dorsal body wall on each side of Mr. Oink here, and they're protected by a layer of fat. The kidney's function is to remove waste from the blood. Cutting one of the kidneys this way will be able to recognize the renal cortex, the renal medulla, and the renal pelvis. From the kidney to the bladder, following these uteries, liquid waste is conducted into the urinary bladder. The bladder, of course, is a muscular sac that contains the urine, which will leave the body from a single tube called the urethra. In females, the urethra opens into the urogenital sinus, then passes wastes into the outside through the urogenital orifice. But in males, the urine will pass through the urethra, then to the testes, and finally leave through the genitals. So that's it. We've made it to the end of the systems. Well, except for the ones we can't really see or find, because it's very hard to see nerves, and it's very difficult to saw through a cranium. So, this is all we are able to see with our dissection of the fetal pig. Thanks for watching. If you liked it, please like the video, and if you want to see more from me, please subscribe to the channel. Now that the video's over, get out!